Diane grew up in Lexington, the oldest of 3 children. She would describe her childhood as challenging, but she enjoyed horseback riding and theater arts. Diane graduated high school with honors, then Clark University with a degree in psychology. She married and had 2 beautiful daughters, of whom she is incredibly proud. Diane has described her journey as learning to live again, with the help of DMH services, including case management, community-based flexible support services, and adult clinical community services. Today she lives in Ipswich, Massachusetts, enjoys time with family, which includes 4 grandchildren. She enjoys creating and cooking her own recipes and spending time with her many friends. Diane maintains self-care through exercise and meditation and has a very rewarding life. Welcome, Diane.
Well, this is an anxiety-creating show. Good morning. My name is Diane Colbert. I'm honored to be here this morning. A few days after Ben invited me to speak, I had a very powerful moment. I realized that the last time I was in the city of Boston, I was homeless 13 years ago, a bag lady, sleeping on Long Island shelter, getting dropped off at the city morgue, and walking to Rosie's place because it was the only safe place to spend the day. So I hope my just being here today gives everyone hope that recovery is possible. My childhood was challenging. My childhood was crazy. My father was an alcoholic and a pedophile. My mother suffered from bipolar disorder and paranoid schizophrenia and refused all treatment. As a consequence, there was a lot of abuse, sexual, physical, and emotional. I repressed all memory of the abuse until I was well into my 40s, so I did not understand why there was a huge hole inside, always feeling less than and worthless. I went through my days at school feeling as though everyone else had the instruction manual to life, but God forgot to give me one. I often say that my daily experience as a teenager was that consciousness itself was excruciating. By the age of 14, it became my responsibility to get my dad treatment at the local detox and attempt to get my mother sectioned into a psychiatric hospital, which left me caring for my younger brother and sister. I did not have a real childhood. So when I got to college in sophomore year, I picked up a drink and a drug for the first time. There was immediate, incredible euphoria. For 20 minutes, then I blacked out. I remember feeling, this is what I've been missing. It fixed me. It filled the hole. I felt comfortable in my own skin for the first time, and I chased that feeling for the next 40 years. During that time, I had 3 failed marriages, gave birth to 2 wonderful daughters, and had a fairly successful career in mental health. While my childhood did not give me any tools to deal with life, it gave me some wonderful tools to deal with people who were psychotic. I parlayed that into a wonderful career in mental health. At this point, I was trying desperately to control my drinking. I always waited until the kids were in bed. I didn't want them to see a sloppy drunk like my dad was. And then I got the relief I needed. I was already supplementing the alcohol with prescription drugs because it took more to get the effect I needed. My addiction, depression, and anxiety robbed me of the ability to be the mother I so desperately wanted to be. More than anything, I wanted to be a better mother than my mother was able to be. In 1989, I put down the alcohol, but honestly, only because it was no longer working. I spent the next 20 years substituting with prescription drugs and street drugs when prescription drugs weren't available. I could not imagine life without chemical peace of mind. At the same time, flashbacks about my childhood abuse began. There were numerous hospitalizations for depression, PTSD, and suicide attempts, but they were ineffective as I was never able to be honest about my drug use. It was at this time that I applied for services from DMH and began with them. I continued to spiral downward. I was unemployable, my third marriage had failed, and I became homeless because my daughter was too afraid to let me into her home while I awaited a bed at a Victory program. After 2 months on the street, I was accepted into Women's Hope, and for the first time got sober. I was very, very badly beaten up by drug abuse and homelessness, so after 4 months at Women's Hope, I went to the Glenishean halfway house. At this time, I was meeting with a DMH worker once a month. I graduated from the halfway house, and 6 months later was offered a job at that house. Things were going really well, until I injured my back, and the doctor who had been my doctor when I was a client at the halfway house put me on tramadol and Flexeril and told me they were safe for me to take as a recovering addict. They were not safe for me to take as a recovering addict. Within 2 months, I was fired from the job, buying speed off the internet, and buying OxyContin on the street. I was off and running. It did not take long until I was unemployable again, and I began showing up at hospitals. My last psychiatric hospitalization was for ECT. I was so desperate to find something that would fix me other than getting honest about my substance abuse. I still believed that substances were holding me together. During that time, I was interviewed by DMH again, given a caseworker, and put into CBFS, which later became ACCS. Having CBFS literally saved my life. When you self-medicate your emotional pain, you can't work on the causes of that pain until you get sober. But you can't imagine going through a day without the drugs to take the pain away. My worker at CBFS knew how close I was to the end well before I did, and stayed in close touch with me even though I was not interested. But within a few months, the drugs also stopped working. I was now at the place where there was no relief from the pain. I was physically and mentally addicted, and I couldn't stop. I knew it was killing me, but I couldn't stop. I came to that place where I couldn't imagine my life using, and I couldn't imagine my life not using. One of my favorite sayings to describe this experience is from Dante's Inferno. I did not die, but nothing of life remained. I wanted to die and I had a plan, but because CBFS was in my life, by the grace of God, I picked up the phone and called my worker instead of carrying out that plan. And because God is good, that caseworker is here today. To see her, and it's just always so great to see her. So they literally saved my life. I spent 5 days in a spin-dry detox, and CBFS was there for my discharge planning and every meeting with doctors. 40 years of drinking and drugging had taken their toll. I was physically, mentally, and emotionally devastated. My caseworker had to come into the grocery store with me because my anxiety was so severe. I could not go to the shelves by myself. At this time, I immersed myself in Alcoholics Anonymous. I went to 2 to 3 meetings a day, and that's pretty much all I did because it's all I was capable of doing. I needed to get a foundation in sobriety before I could even begin to look at my mental health issues. It was a long, slow process. In the beginning, I couldn't cook for myself, and if my socks matched, it was a stellar day. Showers were optional. I began seeing Dr. Kuwait through CBFS. He helped with my psychiatric medications, which help a whole lot more when you're not using other drugs. A year into my sobriety, I really began to struggle with my depression. My team stepped in with all the support I needed. We checked in every afternoon. I saw them 2 to 3 times per week to check in, get coffee, just to connect. It meant so much that I knew they were there for me. The additional support and the medication change eventually lifted the depression. I began to put exercise in my life at the YMCA, and that has been a wonderful addition to my life. I lost 70 pounds and discovered that I love to cook. And through it all, my services and caseworkers were there with support, rides to meetings when I couldn't find one, and whatever other support I needed, like going through minor surgery. Well, something like that may not sound like much when you're a recovering addict. It's a big deal. At about 5 years of sobriety, I felt ready and sought out a therapist to begin the serious work of looking at my PTSD and childhood issues that had haunted me my entire life. I had to have a very strong foundation in AA to begin this work. It continues today. I know it's probably tempting to sometimes think of time with a case manager as just a ride to the grocery store or a doctor's appointment or whatever, but it's so much more than that. It's someone to connect with, to talk with about what I'm thinking and how I'm feeling, to make plans for my future, and sometimes just a reality check. I do that all the time with Ben.
Is this normal?
Last February, my daughter was diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma. My first call was to my AA sponsor so I could stay sober. My second call was to my caseworker, Ben. Shortly thereafter, he, the clinical supervisor, and the recovery coach showed up, and we made a plan to deal with a very scary issue. Steve, my recovery specialist, has been wonderful because when you put two addicts together, they talk recovery. So it's a different kind of support than I get from my case manager, but it's equally valuable. I'm happy to report my daughter is now in remission. And I could be there for her for the first time. Today, most of the time, I am content, which was a new feeling for me. I had to ask somebody what this feeling was. I have a quiet life that I love and value. I'm not plagued by depression. My PTSD is more manageable, and my anxiety continues to lessen. This year, my case manager and I are going to look at me going back to work part-time. I would like to give back some of what has been given to me. Although I don't rely on ACCS as much as I did 7 years ago, I cannot put into words the difference knowing they are there makes in my life. I was not given any support as a child, and sometimes I feel like ACCS is the support system I never had, and it's hugely comforting to have them in my life.
Thank you, Diane. Got me all choked up over here talking about sobriety. Congratulations. Congratulations. We've overcome a lot, and sobriety is the big, I think for me, is the biggest. And to be sober and to enjoy life, and just congratulations.